Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Kesubos Memches. We are right in the middle of a discussion describing the obligations of a husband towards his wife. Amongst them we find the term she'era, which according to Rabbi Lazar meant oina, the time husband and wife spend time together, physically, thus providing for his wife's emotional needs. Says the Gemara 6 lines from the top of the Yom Tov. Rabbi Yosef presented a brisa. The reason why the Torah refers to this time spent together as she'era, because she'er is a reference to flesh. She'era zu kiruv basar. It denotes a closeness of flesh. Nothing between him and her. Shelo yinag ba minag parsim. One should not conduct himself the way the Persians do. They spend time together dressed. That's inappropriate and not providing for his wife's needs. If he wants to be extra spiritual, that's fine, but not on your wife's expense. But in fact, the Magen Avraham writes, if they both fully consent, they're both fully okay with this type of method, then it is acceptable, but it's quite tricky because it must be really consensual. In any case, standard procedure is without begotten. Misayel Rav Huna. This is a right to Rav Huna. Dam Rav Huna. Ha'omer. If a husband gets up and declares, I can't do the standard procedure. Ella ani bebigdi v'hi bebigda. Rather, we both should be dressed. That's unacceptable. That's not providing for his wife's needs, and therefore yoytzi v'neisin ksuva. He separates and provides a ksuva. The Mishnah concluded with Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. Afilu ani shebi Yisrael v'chulu. Typically, a husband provides for his wife's kivura. Rabbi Yehuda says even a poor man, at a minimum, would provide 2 flute players and 1 mekainenes, a woman who will chant in honor of his wife. So what does the Tanakama hold? This is not required. This is the bare minimum. What are we speaking about? Ida urcha. If this is standard, custom in his wife's family, my time at the Tanakama, Damarlai, why would the Tanakama not require this? Vidilav urcha. And if it's not really standard procedure in his wife's family, my time with Rabbi Yehuda, why would Rabbi Yehuda require it? Like Tzricha, apparently we're speaking Kegoin, for instance, the Urchei Didei. This procedure, this type of ceremony, would be considered standard on his side of the family. But Velav Urcha Dida, not really standard on his wife's side of the family. Now the question is, upon his wife's passing, whose standards does he have to live up to? His own family or her family? That's the machlekes. Tanakama Savar. Tanakama holds. Ki Amrinan, when do we say? There's a pasuk which says Bu'ulas Baal, and we learn from there that a wife rises to her husband's standards of living. So once she marries, he's obligated to provide for her as he would provide for himself as per his standards. The question is, sure, during his lifetime, he must provide for her according to his standards, but what about after her death? That's the machlekes. Ta'ana kamasavar, ki amrinan, when do we say? Oy lo imoy ben yiredis. A wife can only go up, can be upgraded to her husband's standards if he is accustomed to living higher than her. So he brings her up with him. Ve'ino yiredis imoy. Rather than go down to his level, meaning when he marries, he must provide for her at least equal or better than what she's used to. So that's the halach. The question is, does this only apply when she's with him? So I'm with you, you have to bring me up to your standards. Hani mili mechayim, provide only, perhaps only, while he's alive. So she associates with him, identifies with him, and therefore lives up to his standards. Aval achar misaloi, but perhaps after death, is not really applicable. And therefore, suffice that he provides for her on her family standards. That's the Tanakama Shita. Rabbi Yehuda Savar. Rabbi Yehuda holds Afilu lachamisa, this obligation to provide for her as yourself applies during your lifetime and even after his death. She maintains this higher standard of living. Therefore, in our case, when it is customary to provide the players, the chalilim for the levayas on his side of the family, he must provide for her as well, because of the concept of oila imay. Amar Chizda, Amar Ukfa, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. In fact, that's how we paskin, that just as Meichayim, she is oila imay, likewise la'achar misa, she is oila imay as well. He must maintain his standards for his wife as well, even after her passing. V'amar Chizda, Amar Ukfa. We have another halacha from the same Manda Amar. Mi shenishtata, a fellow who suddenly becomes deranged and mentally unstable and can't really provide for his family, but he has assets to draw from. Bezdin Yarden Nechas, Bezdin goes and accesses his properties. V'zanin umefarnes and es ishtay ubanav abnoisay v'davar acher. And they go and they feed and they mefarnes, they provide for their clothing needs, whether it's his wife, whether it's his sons, his daughters, and also v'davar acher, something else as well, which we will discuss soon. Amalei Ravina Ravashi, is that so? That this can be done even without him knowing? You see, the fact is, his wife he has an obligation to feed, but not his children. Still, the assumption is, most probably, he wants them to be taken care of, and therefore we allow ourselves the liberty of taking from his assets and providing for them. Amalei Ravina Ravashi, if that's the case, I have a kash. Why is this meant to be different than the following halacha, the following brisa, which says, his fellow suddenly left town. His wife is asking for mazonis. No husband, no mazonis. Bezdin Yarden Nechasav. Bezdin can overtake his properties. And they can provide for her needs, but only his wife's needs. Because that is a chiyuv min haTorah. But not for his children, and not for davar acher, which we will mention soon. So how come you tell me that if a fellow becomes a shoyta, Bezdin has the liberty to go and tap into his assets to provide for his family's needs, not just his wife's, but even his kids? Amar lei. So Rav Ashi responds, big difference here. Don't you see a difference between between a fellow who left town willingly and knowingly, and he didn't bother leaving instructions to feed his family? In that case, you can't just compel him to feed his family, and therefore you cannot take for his sons and daughters, for whom he doesn't really have a chiv. You can't compare between that case and the other case of the shaita. A fellow who left without das, meaning suddenly he becomes unwell. So there, the running assumption is that most probably he wants to feed his entire family, and therefore we allow ourselves to tap into his properties for that purpose. Okay, so we spoke about this fellow who left town, leaving no instructions. We take from his nechasim for his wife, but not for the kids, and not for davar acher. What is davar acher, which we don't use? My davar acher, what is this davar acher? Rav Chizda Amar is a tachshit. We cannot tap into his nechasim to provide for his wife's tachshitim, perfumes, basic needs, yes, but not the extra accessories. Rav Yosef Amar tzedakah. We can't take from his nechasim to give tzedakah. You need his permission for that. Now, Manda Amar Tachshit, the one who learned, we don't use the funds for his wife's tachshit. Kolshkin tzedakah, of course, you can't make tzedakah with it. That certainly needs his haskama, his consent. However, Manda Amar tzedakah, the shita that said we don't give tzedakah, aval tachshit yavin, but when it comes to tachshit, he holds that yes, this too is something that she can draw from. We can tap into his properties, his assets, to provide for this tachshat need. Why? Because typically a husband doesn't want his wife to become manuval, to become ugly, etc. So, in that case, we assume that it's considered like a basic need to keep his wife, presenting properly, whether it's perfume, etc. And therefore, we allow ourselves to take that from him as well. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba Amar Rav Huna, Misha halach l'mdinas hayam. A fellow skipped town. Umeisa ishtayin, his wife suddenly passes away. Bezdin yard l'nechasav. Bezdin goes ahead, taps into his nechasim, v'yukayvrin oisel v'yichvoidai, and they bury her in accordance with with his family's standards. Now the Gemara is assuming that her standards are higher than his. We can only take to provide for the kvura expenses as per his lower standards. That's what the Gemara figures. Asks the Gemara, really? L'fi kvoidai, based on his lower standards, v'loi l'fi kvoidai, not based on her higher standards? That's impossible, Rashi explains. All Shitas would agree that she doesn't go down. She doesn't downgrade. Even after Misa. You see, the whole discussion before whether this obligation, this concept of keeping to his standards applies only during his lifetime when she's with him or even afterwards, that is regarding being upgraded, going up a level. Does she go up to his level or not? Is it only Mechaim or even Lacham Misa? But in terms of losing stature, in terms of being downgraded, all Shitas agree. An Isha is never meant to be downgraded. You have to maintain at least her standards, even after passing. So that's the kasha. Based on his lower standards, not her higher standards. Ema rather say like this, it's the opposite. We're speaking that she has lower standards and he has higher standards. We conform to his higher standards. Hakamashwan, the chiddush here is, she goes up with him, but not down. Even after death, even after passing. This is basically Shitas Rabbi Yehuda that we discussed before, and that's how we paskened. Amar of Masna, Ha'imar, his fellow is about to pass away, and he says, look, Imesa, if my wife passes away after me, don't use my nechasim, my funds to bury her. Shemilai, we accept it. Asks the Gemara, well, the whole point of a husband being chayev in the kvura of one's wife is because he gets something from her as well, right? We learned yesterday he gets the ksuba, the nedunya, the items and properties recorded in the ksuba. He gets that. So in exchange, he gives the kvura. But once he passes away, you know who has to look after her kvura? Those individuals who access her ksuba, who will be Yerush ksuba, like her sons. But if he has sons not from her, his own sons, they don't have to pay for her burial expenses. Right? Over here, when this fellow says, if my wife passes away, don't bury her using my nechasim. Shemila, we accept it. Maishna, why does he have to go announce it? It's a basic halacha. Maishna ki amar. What difference does it make? Because he says, we accept it. The nafli nichsi kamiyaspi. If he asks for it, we accept it because his nechasim are now being transferred to his yisaimim, right? And since they're not really getting their stepmother's ksuba content, they're not obligated in her kfura. So kiloi amar nami. So likewise, if he didn't declare it, he didn't present this request, the same thing happens. You don't need his request to affect this process. Nichse kami yasmi romu. The fact is, his nechasim are transferred to his children. And they're not responsible for their stepmother's kvura. So why does he have to actually request it for it to happen? Ella, rather, the halacha was actually meant to be learned differently. A different case. Ha'imar, this fellow, is about to pass on. He says, look, Imesu, who is like third person, referring to himself, when I pass away, don't bury him at his own expense. Rather, tzedakah will take care of me. Do we listen to that? No, ein shamila, we cannot accept that. Lav kol meno, it's totally not up to him. It's not within his control, within his ability, sheyasher as banav, to enrich his kids, to save them the money, v'yapel atzma l'tzibur, become a burden on the community. One has no right to do that. Rather, his kids should bury him using his nechasim. So the bottom line is, we learn from Be'ulas Baal that an Isha is meant to be upgraded. Baal Yaseh Shel Baal, V'loi B'yiridaseh Shel Baal. That's how Rashi quotes the Gemara in Sanhedrin. Sorry, the Gemara later on in Kesubos. A wife is meant to rise to her husband's higher standards, and he's meant to provide for her based on his standards. Certainly during his lifetime. What about Lachar Misa? Rabbi Yehuda Paskins. It applies then as well, and that's how we paskin. Says the Mishnah, La'olam hi b'reshus ha'av. Typically, a ktana or a nara is in her father's total jurisdiction. Let's say he's a Yisrael, she cannot yet eat truma, etc., etc. He has all privileges, all entitlements, until when? Ad shetikanes l'reshus habal l'nesun, until she's handed over to the husband for the sake of marriage, for the sake of chuppah. That's when she enters his domain. But until then, she's father's daughter. Masar avlu shluchei abal. Suppose the father handed over his daughter to the emissaries of the husband, not the husband himself, but to his shliach. Here as well, harehi b'reshus abal, she's considered now in the reshus of the husband. But halach av im shluchei abal. If the father went along with the shluchim of the baal, he couldn't let go. He's going with them. Or the father sent some shluchim to escort his daughter together with the shlichim of the Baal. So he hadn't yet let go of her. She's still considered in the domain of the father. Masru shluchei av shluchei Baal. But if the shluchim of the father, who actually delivering the daughter to the husband, happened to encounter representatives of the Baal, and they handed her over to them, she's now considered in the reshus of the husband. Now the Mishnah starts with Lo'ila. For all time, she's always considered still in father's possession until she enters her husband's possession. My Lo'ilam, why does the Mishnah add Lo'ilam? La'fuki b'Mishnah Rishayna. This is coming to undo the halacha mentioned in an earlier version of Mishnayos, which maintains as follows: it's not Higia Azman v'lo nisu. So they had a set wedding date, and time arrives, and there's no wedding. He's procrastinating. Oichleis mishalai, v'oichleis b'truma. So the kala can now demand. He has to feed her, and she can partake in his truma if he's a kohen. Right? So till now, even if she was engaged to a kohen, she keeps away from truma. Going forward, he's feeding her, he's looking after her, he can feed her truma. That was the earlier version of the Mishnayos. Kamashman la'olam comes the Mishnah and says, no, she's absolutely still in father's possession until he hands her over. We're concerned about actually two possible concerns. Why can't she eat truma? Because perhaps, until the husband actually takes a look at her, he might find some blemish and reconsider the entire marriage. In which case, if she was eating truma because of him, it will have turned out that it was a mistaken achilas truma, because he's going to nullify the entire condition. So we don't take chances. We wait with the truma until she actually marries. Another possible concern is that if he feeds her truma while she's still at home, she might share the truma with her siblings who are actually Israel. So, based on one of those two reasons, the halacha is no truma until you actually marry your husband. Masarav, Lishluchi Abal, Hariyah B'Shus Abal V'chul. The Mishnah says, if she was handed over to the Shliach of the Baal, she's considered as good as married. We have two different ways to look at the Mishnah, two perspectives. We have Rav and we have Shmuel. Amar Rav, Misirasa Lakol, the fact that she was handed over to the Shliach of the husband, is considered a full-fledged Misira, which means we treat it as though she's married, she's already sort of in his domain, regarding all the halachas. If she passes away, he's Yerush her. If she passes away, he's a kohen, he can become tummy for her. She gets his earnings, etc., etc. Minat Torah is considered like a chuppah. Chutz mit truma, except for one thing. She should not partake in his truma. Rashi says the reason is because he might find a blemish. So until he actually takes possession of her at home, until then, keep away from the truma. For Rav Asi, Amar Afla truma, no. She's totally his, and in his jurisdiction, even pertaining to Achilas truma if he's a kohen. Eisvir Huna Rav Asi. Rav Huna asked a kasha to Rav Asi. Va'amrila, some say it was Chia, the son of Rav, Chia bar Rav Rav Asi. The Mishnah says, Lo Elam Hibrushusa, Avashatikonos L'chuppah. She's always considered to be her father's daughter. She's considered connected to her father. And the Gemara before learned that Lo Elam means pertaining to Truma. She cannot have Truma at this point, Achatikonos L'chuppah, until she actually experiences chuppah. And you're telling me, handing her over to the Shliach of the Baal affects the same thing. Amalhu Rav, so Rav turned to them. Haven't I already told you in the past? Don't prove your point from a Mishnah which can be interpreted two ways. You think you have a good kasha on Rav Asi? There's a simple way out. He can simply respond to you and explain to you that the words in the Mishnah are not going to be a kasha on him. Handing her over to the shliach of the husband is tantamount to having entered the chuppah. She's totally committed to him and in his jurisdiction, even pertaining to Truma. So this is the first approach in the Gemara. Basically, Rav's approach, that Minat Torah Mesira L'Shliach HaBaal is tantamount to Chuppah. We had a question regarding whether or not she could have the Truma. Rav says no Truma because he might discover a blemish and nullify the entire Kedushin. Rav Asi holds the whole reason why she shouldn't have Truma is because she might share with her siblings. Well, now she's no longer spending her time with her siblings. She's already on the way to her husband. So she can partake in this Truma. So the basic idea is, Mesira L'Baal is like Chuppah. We had a side question regarding, the Truma detail. Machlekes Rav and Rav Asi. Shmuel Amar, he takes on a totally different approach. L'Yrushasa, he says no. An Isha handed over to the Shliach of the Baal is not tantamount to Chuppah. It's not considered like Nisuin, totally unmarried, and therefore she's her own person, she's still connected to her father. But there's one exception, Yerusha. Her father committed certain items in the Kesubos and she passes away at this point. Well, we say the father probably meant that the Chassan should have it. Rashi says there was a Chibas Nisuin, it was already, the process of marriage had already seriously begun. It's committed, he can keep that. He's Yerush her Nedunya. The husband is. Rish Lakish Am Kesubos, he disagrees. He says Mesira L'Shliach HaBaal is considered Nesun only pertaining to her Kesuba. What does that mean? Kesubos Mahi. What do you mean her Kesuba? Mahi. The Mesa Yerushla mean to say that if she dies, he's Yerush the Kesuba? Well, Hainu the Shmuel. It's exactly what Shmuel said. Why would Rish Lakish have to come and add that? Amar Avina Loimar, I mean to say like this. Kesubos Me'acher Mana. She's considered unmarried, except for one thing. At this point, he divorces or he dies, and she goes and marries another fellow. She's only entitled to a half ksuba, 100 zuz, as though she was already a bu'ula, because the fact that she entered that, she got that far into marriage, she was already on the way to the husband in the company of his representatives. We treat her as married, pertaining to the fact that the next husband doesn't have to give her a full ksuba. So both Shmuel and Rish Lakish are pretty much on the same track. Mesira L'Shliach HaBaal is not equated with Nisuin, but we make some exception. He's Yerush the Kesuba, or according to Rish Lakish, she no longer can collect a full Kesuba from the next husband. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Chanina, and Dam Tarbai, they both learned, like Rav Asi, Mesirasa, L'koil af l'truma, the fact that she was handed over to the shliach habal is considered fully like nesuin, even regarding eating truma when he's a kohen. Meisvei, we have a kash on this. There's going to be a kash on everybody except for Shmuel. Shmuel said that it's only considered like marriage pertaining to the Yerusha, but nothing else. And this brisa will be in line with his shita. Meisvei, halach ha'av, shluchei habal. The husband goes along. It's alright, the father went along. He escorted his daughter together with the shliach of the Baal. Or the father's shluchim kept the shluchim of the Baal company. Or they had some sort of courtyard on the way, meaning there was some sort of road stop en route to the husband's home. And she and him went in there to sleep over. So it was just like a road stop. In this case, even though her ksuba, nedunya, I mean the items mentioned in the ksuba, were already transferred to her husband's home, it doesn't mean anything. Mesa, if she passes away at that early juncture, Avia Yarsha, the father gets back all that, nedunya. Because marriage has not yet really begun at this early point. But Masar Av l'shlichei habal, father gave her over to the shlich of the Baal. Oisha Masru shlichei Av l'shlichei habal, the father's shluchim gave her over to the shluchim of the Baal. Oisha Oisha lo ychatzer b'derech, or he had some sort of road stop. V'nichnasim l'shem nesuin, and they both entered there l'shem nesuin, to be considered married. Afal b'shuk subasa b'esaviyah. In this case, even though her ksuba is still sitting in her father's home, her husband is entitled. Marriage has already commenced. Mesa, if she passes away, Bala Yosha, the husband is Yerush. So actually, there's a steer in the brisa. First, we say the chatzar is not considered nesuin, then we say it is. The Gemara soon will address this steer. But this is the punchline. When do we say that her being handed over to the shliach of the Baal is tantamount to marriage? L'Yerusha only pertaining to one thing: he's Yerush her properties. Aval truma, but when it comes to eating his truma, no. Ein isha yicheles b'truma shedikonis l'chuba. She has no truma until she actually experiences chuba to yufta dekula, to yufta zakash, and everybody except for Shmuel. Now, let's deal with these stira. Hoguf kasha. The wording in the brisa is difficult. First, you say amras nichnasa imay lalim. If she went in there, to spend the night with him, then it's not considered marriage. Tama de lola. That's only because they were sleeping over. It wasn't really a serious interaction. It's not considered marriage. Hastama. But let's say it was not stipulated. It wasn't just meant as a one night sleep. They didn't express that. It wasn't verbalized. It was just they went into this place and they slept over. L'shem nisun. We treat it as though she entered his domain. And it's considered marriage. Let's go on to the next part of the brisa, where it seems the opposite. The brisa says if they stipulate, okay, we're going and we're going to be in each other's company, we're going to spend time in the same place, l'shem nesuin, as married, then we say it's considered marriage. Hastama, but if it's just unspecified, unknown what the purpose is, it's just a road stop, was a really serious companionship, then we say no, lalan, it's nothing, it's just sleeping over. It doesn't have the kayach of nesuin. Which way is it? Unspecified, unverbalized, unexplained. Is it marriage or not? Amar v'ashi, stomach tani. We have two variations of unspecifications. Stam chatzar de dalalan. Suppose it was her property that they entered overnight. Now, I'm not speaking about physical interaction. I'm speaking about spending time sleeping overnight in the same house, same room. So if it's her place, that's considered lolan. It's considered an informal, sleepover. And the Rashba says one of the concerns is that he might end up finding some sort of mum and blemish and go back and retract from the entire thing. Since it's her place, it's her property, he doesn't feel comfortable to look her over, and therefore it's not considered a confirmed bona fide marriage yet. But stam chatzah the day l'nesuin. But if it's his property, he feels comfortable, he feels at home. In which case, even if it's unspecified, unverbalized, the fact that they're spending time together on his property, that is tantamount to marriage. So we reconcile these stira. Bottom line is, being handed over to her husband himself is Nesuin. Her husband's representative, well, we have two perspectives. We have one perspective, which is Rav Asi, is considered like Nesuin. We have a question regarding Truma. Then we have Shmuel and Rish Lakish who disagree. Minator, it's not like Nesuin. We have some exception. He gets the Yerusha, or she can no longer collect a full Ksuba next time around, etc. Continues the Gemara. There is one halacha which is agreed upon by all. Tana, we learned in the Brisa. Masar avlo shluchi abal. She was handed over to the shlich of the Baal v'zins, and then she deviates. So typically a nara hamurasa would get skila. But in this case, she was passed over to the shlich of the Baal. Harizu b'chenek. She reverts to chenek, which is the oynish applied to an eshes ish. So all shittas agree that when it comes to znus, we treat her as married, even though she was only passed over to the shliach of the Baal. How do we know this is true? Amar of Ami bar Chama Makra. Pasuk says, "Listen, Beisavia." Skila is applied when she deviates while still at home, and we learn prat as opposed to shemasar av l'shliach Baal. When she had been handed over to the shliach of the Baal, she loses that status. How do you know? Maybe we'll say like this: prat shenichnas alucha b'v'lo nivala. Being handed over to the shliach of the Baal means nothing. The pasuk just means to accept a case where she had experienced chuppah. That's the chiddush of the pasuk. Even though it was just chuppah and no bila, she gets chenek. But how do you know that it applies to the woman who was merely in the company of her husband's shliach? Amarava, Amarli Ami. Ami explained to me as follows: chuppah. The halacha that an isha who experienced chuppah is considered married, pertaining to this halacha, that we already know from elsewhere. We don't need this pasuk for that. But there's a clear pasuk for that. Kiya nara besula murasalish. In describing the nara murasa who gets skila, we have nara besula murasalish, and we learn like this: nara means v'lei begeris, right? Besula means v'lei bula. Murasa means engaged. V'lei nesua, not married. My nesua, what do you mean not married? Ilam nesua mamish, really married. When she's married, she's not a basula anymore. If she had chuppah and interacted with her husband physically, that's already been discussed before. Basula v'lebuula. Why does the pasuk have to add murasa v'lo nesua, not married? If married means buula, then it's already been addressed. Elalav. Oh, apparently the pasuk is trying to add this case as well. Shenichnas l'chuppah v'lo nivala. Even if she had chuppah and not further than that, not bi'ila, she loses the status of nara morasa, and there's no skila. So that idea that chuppah changes the equation, that's been learned from that pasuk. So now we have the extra pasuk, which we mentioned before, Lizna is Besavia. And she's still connected to her father. What is that coming to tell you? That once she is handed over even to the shliach of the Baal, she loses that status, and chenek is applied instead of skill. Okay, so bottom line is we learned about the she'era requiring kiruv basar. We learned that an isha rises in standards, certainly during her husband's lifetime, even after her passing, she can't be downgraded. Not only that, according to Rabbi Yehuda, she's upgraded. She maintains her husband's standards pertaining to the levaya, etc. We provide the same kavod as he would amongst the members of his family, and that's the halacha l'mais. A fellow says, "Look, don't use my nechasim to bury me." We ignore that. He has no right to burden the tzibur in order to enrich his children. While the daughter is b'reshus ha'av, she's totally his. She can't even eat her husband, the Kain's truma at this point, until actual Nesuin. So she's actually in his Rishus, that's considered like Nesuin, and we treat him as married. Let's say she was merely handed over to his representative. Oh, that's a big shaila. We have Rav and Ravasi who maintains considered Nesuin. Regarding eating truma, that's a machlekes. We have the other shita which says it's not considered Nesuin. Regarding him being Yerusher, perhaps yes. Regarding her Ksuba status having changed, perhaps, yes. But all Shittas agree that at that point, the Einish for Aznus would no longer be Skila, rather it reverts to Chenek, like an Eshes Ish. That's not from a special pasuk. Okay, to be continued. Much Hatzlacha to you and B'suras Teves.